How do you choose between down and synthetic insulation when picking out a jacket? An insulated jacket is a key piece of kit for any outdoor adventurer, especially if you plan to spend any amount of time outside in the colder months. But how do you know what kind of insulation is right for you? Here's how I would break it down. The primary types of insulation you'll find in a jacket are down and synthetic. Down insulation comes from the fluffy undercoat of birds like ducks and geese. Just as it would for our feathered friends, it keeps you warm by trapping in air and body heat. Synthetic insulation refers to a man-made material that's created to mimic the fiber structure of down and its ability to retain heat. Synthetic insulation is generally made of polyester, and similar to down, is offered in many different quality levels and weights with different pros and cons attached. So how do you know what's right for you? Let's compare a few key points. Weight. Down insulation, on the whole, is going to be lighter than synthetic. Now, I will say that in recent years, there have been some big advancements to synthetic insulation, and there are much lighter options available now. But typically, if your most important factor is lightweight, down's going to be a good bet. Going hand in hand with that concept, down is generally also more compressible. This is really important for backpackers, climbers, and alpinists, and even folks looking to cut down on luggage when traveling. Synthetic insulation just tends to not compress nearly as small as down. One of the other biggest comparisons between down and synthetic insulation is their respective ability to manage moisture. Most people think of this in terms of combating precipitation and wet weather, but it also applies to sweat buildup from highly aerobic activity. Down is less equipped to handle moisture than synthetic insulation. When down gets wet, the fibers of the plumage clump together and lose their ability to trap and hold heat. To combat this, many down jackets on the market do feature some kind of hydrophobic coating on the down, which helps it to resist moisture and dry faster. While these treatments greatly improve its performance in wet weather, down still doesn't quite stack up against synthetic insulation in this category. Synthetic fibers are still able to retain your body heat and warm you even when wet. If you plan to roam in really nasty weather or are focused on high-intensity endeavors, synthetic insulation may be better for you. Now, you might be thinking, that's all well and good, but which one is warmer? And unfortunately, that's a bit of a tricky question to answer. This is how I think of it. Down is generally more thermally efficient compared to synthetics, meaning it usually is just a better insulator, but when comparing jackets, it's often apples to oranges. As I mentioned, both types of insulation come in varying degrees of quality and warmth, so here's what I would look for. You'll typically see a fill power rating for down insulation, which essentially describes the quality of the down based on how many cubic inches 1 ounce of that down fills. Simply put, when you use higher fill power, remember that's higher quality, not quantity, less of it is needed to provide the same amount of warmth as lower quality down. Now, obviously, a lot of really ultralight jackets use higher fill power down, but they aren't made to deliver as much warmth as a jacket that's super stuffed with a low fill power down. High fill power does directly correlate with a higher price, so many jackets made to be exceptionally warm use a lower fill power to keep the price affordable while offering a lot of insulation. They just also tend to be heavier. I know that's a lot of information and it can be pretty confusing, but I'd recommend closely considering the overall weight and stated purpose of a jacket to understand if it's right for you. And if it's too tricky to decide from the information you find online, never hesitate to reach out to our team for guidance. Synthetic insulation comes in a variety of configurations and weights, and there's not necessarily a direct equivalent in how to assess its efficiency. I tend to just research the material and weight of the jacket along with its described purpose to get a better idea of what it's built for in this case. Going into the process of selecting a jacket with a clear idea of your needs is the best way to end up with the right option for you. Another thing to consider is care and long-term durability. Now, whether they like to admit it or not, most outdoorsy folks go a long time in between washes on their down jacket, and that's actually for good reason. Down jackets typically have lightweight shell materials, and down fibers themselves are sensitive to the washing process. We always recommend you follow the manufacturer's instructions for washing and drying your jacket, but the general wisdom is that you should use a small amount of down-safe detergent on a very gentle process with low heat. The same is mostly true of synthetic insulation, but I find it tends to be a little more resistant to wear during the washing process. It's just really key to keep super low heat with synthetics, as they technically can melt in high heat. Cleaning your insulated jacket from time to time helps to remove residue and buildup on the insulation, which can really bring it back to life after a tough season of adventure. Something else you may notice when shopping for insulated jackets is a notable difference in price across different types of insulation. Down jackets tend to be more pricey since they're insulated with a natural material, whereas synthetic insulation is often more cost-effective. If performance features aren't your primary driving factor, I would opt for synthetic insulation to save on cost. In conclusion, weight and packability, moisture resistance, thermal efficiency, long-term care, and cost are the primary factors of comparison between down and synthetic insulation. Down tends to be lighter and more compressible, as well as more thermally efficient. Synthetics are better suited for wet environments, they're a bit easier to care for, and they tend to be noticeably less expensive. Considering these factors should help you differentiate which option is best for you. But if you have any lingering questions, our expert team of real people is always happy to help. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the trail.